Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Platos Cave, coming to you from Australia, the land down under. That's right, you know it. It's wonderful. It's good. It's what we like. For Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. A funded radio, which means if you can donate, please do. Any kind of currency is good, including crypto. Also, if you can't donate, that's okay because, times are tough all over. Please tell people about the station. And while we're at it, if you see us out in the wild, subscribe, like, comment, share. It's all good. It helps us and it raises our profile because I'd like to do this for a living one day. That would be nice. So right now, of course, Dave and I are doing this for free. And S are doing all the other hosts on this radio station to bring you thoughts that you might not have had otherwise, to give you information that you might have overlooked, and generally to disrupt the corporate narrative. If you like any of that and you see us out there, please, subscribing would be awesome, but liking, sharing, and commenting, and all that stuff is all good. Is all good. Now, you can listen to us and any radio program on this channel on any device, any platform pretty much. So grab an app anywhere, right? Or, in fact, you can listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. That's awesome. In case you didn't know it, and I know Dave knows it, the archives are free. That's right. Come to the Revolution Radio archives, and there's a whole bunch of content of shows you might have missed, of hosts you might have missed. And it's really worthwhile just to check it out. It's free. Can't get better than that, right? So get in there. Now, broadcasting at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we are broadcasting. And for Dave,
it's the Dark and Young.
Nice and loud and clear. I love it. For myself, of course, here in what was today sunny Pembleway, it is the Daruk people. And with that, we would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. Thank you very much. It's not been a slow news week. In Germany, summer was called saure Gurkenzeit, which means pickle time for news. Nothing happens, right? A kitten fell out of a tree. Yay! Something happened. But we can't say the same now for the Northern Hemisphere, which is sort of coming out of summer into autumn, So the news are now hitting hard and fast, I guess. Certainly, I think Dave found a very good story, and I think we should start with that. And I'll let you run with it, my friend. But Australia has once again been recognized as the first in curtailing your freedoms on the internet. Why don't you tell us what happened, my friend?
So let's start. Let's just set your mind back. A decade ago, Meki, I didn't even think it was that long ago, but you know what? It surely was. A decade ago, we employed a new department in our political system, and that was basically the Internet Czar. We had some things in there in the Parliament that said, we have to collect metadata on everybody. Metadata. Now that sounds so harmless, Meki, I'm going to tell you. It's the who, where, why, and what you were doing on the internet, but it's all data. Just data. Don't worry about it, right? Nothing to worry about here, nothing to see here. Move along. Nothing at all can come of it that's bad. It's good for everybody. Surely, sharing all this. Well, it wasn't sufficient. Let's just put it that way. It was a good try, thin edge of the wedge, if you will. But now, coming to a land where you are, and that's foreshadowing where the story's going, we implemented a strict strategy to save the children from the internet. Save the children. Now, I would vote for save the children if it didn't mean that we all have to be penalized as adults. save the children. Let's save the innocent children. Let's keep them innocent and require the rest of the nation to provide an ID in order to use the internet. Just so we know, well, that you're not a child. No, it's so you know who we are, and it's so that everything we do and say can be logged and tracked and kept, and you can be responsible for what you say on the internet. That's what it's actually for. But our Prime Minister at the UN yesterday decided he was going to describe this wonder of technology that the social media companies have. They've attempted to try and put some things in place that can face rec a child and identify them as being 15 years and under. However, it's atrociously inaccurate. 16, 17-year-old Caucasian people, it kind of works with, not, I think it's that 80% success rate. But when you get to, let's say, Asian nations or African descended people, it's hopelessly incorrect. Hopelessly incorrect. There's no way. So the social media companies are going to be provided with huge fines. But this isn't the story. The story isn't that social media companies have been asked by our government to put in place things that stop children from using the internet. But there was a huge hurrah, Meki. Huge hurrah from the head of the European nations. Forget her name. It's irrelevant at this point. It doesn't really matter. But they're looking on with like this intent curiosity. Oh my, you can really do that? You can stop children from using the internet? Oh, how do we get on board with this wonderful new idea? It's no different. Yeah. Who's driving the bus? Come on, right? And really, to be honest with you, it isn't about protecting the children at all. Not even at all. We've been using these things called yonder pouches at school so that the children at school don't have an ability to use the phone because it's locked in this magnetically sealed bag, which is a Faraday cage. But you know what my daughters did? Sorry, do you know what I read on the internet about what children were doing? Not my daughters at all.
Not my daughter. Oh, she didn't do that.
And they said, the people, clearly the parents, had children approach them and say, do you have a phone, an old phone? Why? Oh, no reason. And they would put that in the pouch and have their real phone on their person and still try to use it, or, have headphones in or earbuds or something or other, or a smartwatch, because that, connects to the phone in the pouch in the Faraday cage, clearly. And they were still able to message and do it. Look, kids will be kids, they'll get around it. That's my message. All they have to do is go onto Temu and buy that face, like it's a stocking with a printed face on it, and you put it over your head and you can be anyone you want. That's all they have to do, and they can get past all this social media restriction. But it's not about the social media restriction. It's not about saving the children. It's just about IDing all the adults. Because in England, they've turned the wick up on internet usage, and the terms that they put into their laws were, if you post something that may offend someone in the future, that's illegal. And there's a lady doing 2 years in prison for reposting someone else's tweet. That's it. She's not even the person who wrote the words in the first place. How did she become the arbitrator of information? What, by reposting it to a new audience? They could have looked it up themselves. They could also be subscribed to the original post person.
They did not, did
the
they?
may offend someone is so loose that if we continue down the path of not being confronted with information that we dislike, then everyone in the future going down that trend, because it's a collapsing trend, to everyone being annoyed at everyone that's, offended by everything that anyone has said ever. And therefore, anything you post from that moment the law is in can be offensive to someone in the future. This is the most annoying part of the English laws, which are going to come our way because our restrictions of the internet is now going to go global.
Well, they're definitely going to try to attempt it. Yeah.
When I say try, when you say try, I see them just at the thin edge of the wedge going to put some rules in to save the children.
It'll start with the Five Eyes, those nations. That's what will start, I think. And then it won't be every nation. They're not going to be able, not every nation is going to do it. But it will be so pervasive that the internet providers, when I say providers, I'm talking about the Googles and the Metas of the
Apples.
world. They will just have it in there as a matter of course, just to make sure they're not liable for anything. So it'll just be in there, right? Even if a country doesn't specifically ask for it, they will still be captured by it because they will just do it. It'll just be done. Like, seatbelts. Not every country has a mandatory seatbelt law, believe it or not. But the car comes with a seatbelt.
That's right.
They're in there anyway. So you want them, but it doesn't really matter. You'll get them anyway. So, yeah. Can I get my car cheaper without seatbelts? No.
Yeah, that's right. Can I get what's the base model without them? I want one with only the AM stereo, Mickey. That's the one.
That's it.
So just the same as Mickey's example, just the same as England's laws, but we put the policy in place. Just how their laws couldn't identify the person specifically, but now our laws will allow that to happen. The path that we're going down, that the internet version 3 is going to be so controlled and useless that no one will want to use it. No one will want to say anything. And I think at some point, if you wrote something so harmless but was still found guilty of it, I'd be putting it onto the social media companies saying, well, they let me type it. They let me type it. It was
clearly
legal. They allowed me to type that phrase, I'm sad, because that's going to offend someone who's happy in the future. This is what I think we've completely lost our way. We're entirely misguided. We're not educating the people who we're trying to protect. And that means everyone has to pay the penalty. It's for us in Australia, and I've got children, so I protect my children. But I'm going to say the 40-kilometre-hour speed zones on a highway where a school is siding the highway is everybody. There might be 4,000 cars that go past it in that, let's say 20,000 cars that go past it. So 20,000 people have to be inconvenienced by a speed reduction during school hours twice a day for the chance that a child at the school who will mistakenly forget that there's cars on the road and just wander onto the road to be struck. So you add those up, I just don't get it. It's the side street, sure. And that's why all the private schools, Becky, were building overpasses so that the children didn't have to cross at a set of lights. They could just walk over the bridge to the other side of the road. So a little bit of education saves a whole bunch of inconvenience.
That's
and
true.
This is the same thing. I'm likening those two things together. The internet and all of those controls just need a little bit more education, and voila, we're good.
Yeah. Now we have to come to somewhat more sober topics. There was a lot going on everywhere, to be honest. And I want to start with the Charlie Kirk assassination. So nobody believes the FBI story, full stop. Nobody. Candace Candace, what's her name? The right wing, the friend of Charlie's, doesn't believe it either. Joe Rogan doesn't believe it.
That's right.
Nobody believes the official story. Nobody believes Kash Patel's story. Full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's wrong with it? I want to list a few things that are wrong with the Charlie Kirk assassination, the story, and the person they fingered for the deed. Because I don't think they've got a shooter. They have not got the shooter. So, why? Okay, let's start, and I will be as quick as I can with this. The story is the rifle was pulled apart. He had it down his trouser pants or whatever, or in a bag, but it was disassembled, and then he reassembled it back on the roof, for which you need a screwdriver, right? So let's say he reassembled it on the roof. He took the one shot and allegedly ended Charlie Kirk's life. Okay, that's the story. Okay, then he disassembled it again. Okay, he forgot the screwdriver, right? And then he went down into the woods, and then he left the rifle there, and then off he went. Now, there are a couple of problems with this. So you're disassembling the rifle. When you're reassembling it, you have to resight the scope. Okay? Because even if it's off by a fraction of a millimeter or more, your shot will miss its mark because you're sighting it at a certain distance. So the rifle and the scope are aligned, and your bullet will go where you think it should go. If you disassemble a rifle and you reassemble it, you have to resight the scope. Full stop. You just have to do that, okay? Second, he forgot the screwdriver on the roof. So he's got no screwdriver, right? And then he jumps down and somehow he reassembles it without a screwdriver. Let's say he's got another screwdriver. He's got two screwdrivers. But he probably didn't, whatever. So he reassembles it, and then he throws it into the woods, even though he really needs to get out of there real quick. But he reassembles it anyway, and he throws it into the woods. Makes no sense. But, okay, there we are. When Charlie Kirk was shot, right, the official story is he was shot from the front. There's no exit wound. Now, I look at a lot of the ballistics. They used the ballistic gel-encased skull to show the effect. There was also some red fluid inside that to show the effect of that particular caliber of bullet with the rifle, and at that distance, what kind of damage does it do? And that is the answer is a lot of damage, and it certainly would have an exit wound, which we don't seem to see. And then a few other videos started surfacing, right? And there was one video which saw somebody kind of in the bushes behind Charlie Kirk, and there was something that looked very much like a muzzle flash that coincided with a shot. So shot and muzzle flash coincided in the video, and then Charlie was struck in this particular instance from behind. There are a couple other videos that seem to show that as well. Other videos not related to this video, but they all line up, if you will, from the angle of the shooting. So that's what's wrong with the shooting. Can we say with certainty there was another shooter? From the evidence such as it presents itself at this point from all the videos, yes. Unless somebody released a doctored video. That's a different story, right? If it turns out that somebody released a fake video.
I'm adding to this, right? So there was a guy that was investigating the only video of the FBI's shooter running across the rooftop before he jumped down. You've seen that? I think we've all seen this. And this is the same as the JFK shooting, right? I'm just going to put it out there. So, redacted information. Well, what I saw in this video, what was being explained was when the shooter runs along, the alleged shooter from the FBI's perspective runs on the roof and gets to that different kind of roof. Because there's two different kinds of roofs. He gets to that other point. His shadow disappears. Oddly. But the resolution of the video changes at the exact point where he goes from one of those rooftop styles to the cleaner, flatter rooftop, the whiter of the two rooftops. And by zooming in on all these different components within the video, the cars in the car park, the leaves, the shadows, the windows, the resolution immediately changes, and it shows that through all of those frames, only when the shadow disappears is it a different manipulated video. So it's very interesting to watch the internet sleuths doing the work that could never have been done during the JFK shooting, because they just snipped out the video. The film that was filmed in film, and they just snipped it out, and it's a big gap, and you see the motorcade come down, then there's a gap, and they were all told to stand down. One guy goes like this, looking up at the guy who's giving the orders, you know, with his finger in his, like the speaker in his ear, his earbud, and then goes, what? And then they all step off the vehicle to give the shooter a clear shot. It's clearly, the car doesn't stop, but it slows down enough for them to get off, because they were on each corner. Yeah. That's repulsive, that we now have the idea that was an inside ordered shot from within the government. Now, this one here, I think it's repulsive because, hey, there's elections, right? So you can just do it next time. Just have a different election. So this one, I've got video on the screen, Mickey. I'm not playing it, but people can, if they wish. They can see what the videos are, and they can find them themselves to see for themselves the video evidence that is being presented by people. And these are people who use weapons all the time.
Yeah, and a lot of Marines and Recon Force and Pathfinders and such weighed in on this, and I watched all of their videos. Fascinating stuff. Suffice it to say, I'm convinced now that Charlie Kirk was not shot from the front.
Not at all.
Especially not with the caliber bullet and the rifle that he was meant or said to have been shot with. The damage is not significant enough. Okay, now that's the best way I can put it. I don't want to be too,
let's not be too graphic
about it. No, but there are other things that are wrong with this particular assassination, and what's wrong with it is how I guess he kind of gave himself up, how he left these messages for his boy girlfriend, for his lover, if you will, and how the message content makes absolutely no sense from the point of view of that generation. Even my generation, I wouldn't write messages like that. Text messages are short, sharp, and succinct, even if you make them longer. And not only that, it is the perfect confession. Like if you were looking for someone to confess to something, including little details like, you remember when I engraved the bullets at the table, or things like that, right? It makes no sense. The messages make absolutely no sense. I agree with everybody who has commented on this, right? What also doesn't make any sense is that he hasn't spoken at all. Now, he gave himself up, then, okay. Yeah, so if he gave himself up freely, right, which he did, I guess, to some extent with his father's help and whatnot, and so, but now he's not cooperating. He's not saying peep. Is he going to see trial? I don't know. If he doesn't see trial, then I know for a fact he wasn't the shooter.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but even if he does see trial,
the Lee Harvey Oswald effect.
Correct, but even if he does see trial like Martin Bryant did, it still doesn't prove that he was the shooter, because there are too many other things that just don't add up. Okay, yeah. And then you have to ask yourself as well. And I've asked this before. I'll say it again. The Latin term is cui bono. Who benefits? Who benefits the most from this terrible act? Now, you can say it was a lone crazy gun person, just like Lee Harvey Oswald, like, Sirhan, like all these other people that were the patsies for the establishment. You can say that, okay? And if that's the narrative you want to believe, that's okay, right? But in these kinds of things, right, you always have to look at who benefits the most. And like I said weeks ago when this happened, it's only been a couple of weeks, I knew that Donald Trump would immediately go ahead and blame the left. Immediately, right? And Charlie Kirk would become this banner around which people would assemble, right? This is happening. What's also happening, this is very interesting. Yeah. He happens to be, and I said this before, he happens to be the perfect patsy. Why? Because he's a boy with great grades. Like he scored really high in high school. He got a scholarship to university. He didn't like it. He did something else. Fair enough. That's okay. But he was a very bright kid. Come from a very conservative family, a MAGA family, believe it or not. Conservative Republicans. And then the narrative now is that college somehow corrupted him, weaponized him, brainwashed him, which is funny because he never really attended college long enough. And when he did attend it, it was during COVID. So he never actually went to college. It was a remote college, if you will. So he never actually went to college per se, right? Physically. But okay. But the narrative here is, of course, yeah, he was a good conservative kid from a good, and we're talking like apple pie kind of American family, right? Like salt of the earth, Mormons, etc., and really active in the community, active in church, etc., like solid people, if you will, right? And
this is the FBI's alleged shooter.
Yeah, and of course the story here is now if it could happen to a kid like this,
sure,
right? And this is sort of the argument that is now being used to vilify the left even more in the States. If it could happen to a kid like this, then but aren't you worried about your kid now that the left could indoctrinate your child with socialist or communist or
of course,
or God forbid, diversity kind of ideas, etc., etc. And of course, it even plays more into it now that he allegedly is dating a transsexual who's undergoing a transformation. So all of these things added up.
Never waste an opportunity.
I know. It's the perfect circumstance. It really is, right? It's fantastic.
Was the entire perfect circumstance engineered? Is the next question you have to ask yourself.
And that's exactly right. So when these things happen, they usually happen without a planning. Now, and then you ask yourself, well, okay, fine, Mackie, I know what you're implying here, but why? Okay, good question, and I've got an answer for that as well. So it's twofold. Number one, Charlie Kirk was criticizing things Donald Trump was doing. Number one, Iran bombing. Number two, the handling of the Epstein saga, the whole thing, right? He wasn't very happy. And he was very influential. So a whole bunch of MAGA people agreed with him. And there was quite a bit of a ripple. Now, you might recall that he was called by the White House, and the next day he flip-flopped and said, I trust my friends in the White House. They're going to do the right thing, etc., etc. So clearly, someone had to go talk to him, right? So the reason I'm saying this is they did care about what he said, and they asked him, hey, can you please change your narrative? And he did. Two, and this is something I saw recently, and I mentioned it before. He was on a show, an interview show with two interviewers, and you've seen it before. It's one of those, fairly famous podcasts. Anyway, and he says, the attacks in October on Israel, completely impossible, he said. It's not possible for them to have happened the way they have happened. It's not a big country. If the military had wanted to come in quicker, they would have been there in minutes, not 45 minutes. They would never have been allowed to come in. And he said, best case scenario, that's what Charlie Kirk said. Best case scenario, they let it happen. Now, I've maintained from the start, and Dave knows this, from the start, when it happened, and I'm familiar with the Middle East, it's actually my major at uni, but the point is this. Israel is such a secure state in every aspect, in every aspect of the word. It is secure. All the settlers have guns. They got, and I'm talking about submachine guns here, right? Everybody's armed to the teeth. All Israelis serve in the Israel Defense Force. It's a thing, right? And the Israelis are trained extremely well. They've got their own martial art, Krav Maga. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Very difficult to attack Israel, right? And when I first saw it, I thought to myself, there's no way an incursion like that could happen for such a long time. Sure, you can have people attack Israel. It happens all the time. They're not very successful, and usually they get stopped pretty quick. But having, literally, I guess, hundreds of soldiers or more come into Israeli territory and take something, I think 1,200 or 1,500 hostages, right? Like a lot of hostages, and take them. I can't remember the exact number. I do apologize. But a lot of hostages they took, and they killed about 1,200 Israelis or something. I think it was less than 1,000 hostages. Anyway, the point is that is completely impossible in any scenario. So again, even then, that night, I had the same feeling I had when 9/11 went down.
Exactly.
They let, best case scenario, they let it happen. Why? Good question. Now, most people will stop here and say, the government would never do anything to harm its citizens. So I'll stop you right there. We know for a fact that all kinds of governments all throughout history have done a lot of things to harm their citizens.
Yeah.
And in modern times. Look at the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, okay? Look at MK Ultra. Look at the radiation experiments that were conducted on American citizens, both soldiers as well as citizens. Like, they released radioactive isotopes into cities, right?
Yeah.
Via sprinkler systems, via all kinds of things.
Sprayed at nighttime as well.
Yeah.
And just to see how their people would react to radiation poisoning.
Yeah. So that happened. Okay, to be clear. On top of that, you have to ask yourself, well, okay, all right, well, that sounds a bit, nutty, and I don't believe it, but it's not a matter of belief. It actually happened. It's a fact. So you can believe it or not, it's up to you, but I'm just telling you these are facts. Another thing that happens all the time is if you decide to start a war or have a war or whatever, that there are two things. One, you will kill your enemy and you will kill citizens that might be innocent in your enemy's country, right?
Yep.
Two, you will kill your own people. But by that I mean is you will send soldiers into harm's way and they will get killed or injured in the prosecution of any given war, which of course we have seen now, right? And with that mindset, right, you don't think it's possible that these people look at the cost-benefit analysis? Okay, World Trade Center, 3,500 people killed. What do we get? Invade Afghanistan, invade Iraq, get bases in all the stands in Central Asia, get the control of the opium trade again. We get control of the gas pipeline. We get Patriot Act 1 and 2. We get the Office of Homeland Security. People are willing to give up their freedoms. Any terrorist charges, we can hold them forever.
It's a numbers game, Mackie. It's certainly weighed onto the success side.
Yeah.
Despite the small amount of casualties. And I'm not saying that flippantly. You've got to understand what that means. See, if we lost so many people during World War II, that's nothing compared for what they required the buy-in from the American people to accept it.
In fact, I'll give you an example from World War II. So obviously, we all know that the Americans dropped 2 atomic bombs on Nagasaki, well, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We know that, right? That happened, okay. Now, they didn't do it because they felt like it. Oh, and it's a good thing to do. They did it for 2 main reasons, right? They had learned when they attacked Okinawa, the Japanese didn't give up. If the Americans or the Allies in general had to invade Japan, like had to send a expedition force like they invaded Normandy,
they would not have succeeded that at all.
Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of GIs would have been killed.
It was hard enough on the smallest little island, Mackie, that had no trees on it.
Yeah,
there was no way to hide.
Japanese, that's right. In Japanese, in the language, there's actually no word for retreat. It doesn't exist. So they would have fought really hard, and they would have lost. Like I said, they would have lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers on both sides. So the math was really easy. Okay, we're going to drop a bomb, but one is not enough because you have to prove that you can do it more than once because it's a new science. The first one might have been a fluke. So they dropped the 2 bombs. Japanese surrender because, oh, geez, clearly the Americans can't do it. That's it, done. And they didn't want to do it in Europe. Why? Because they're white people in Europe.
Yeah, that's right. It's that Sodom and Gomorrah moment, Mackie, where it turned everyone to salt, just to powder.
Yeah, pretty much.
It really did.
Now the second, the second reason they dropped the bombs was to show the Soviet Union we can drop the bomb. Okay, that was the second reason because the Cold War had already started. They let the Soviets take Berlin, but then you could see that Germany specifically was cut up into 4 zones, right? And the Western Allies worked together, and then Russia had its own zone to itself, the Eastern.
And these are
zone,
the paperclip ones. That's where we got all of our rocket engineers. Mackie, I wanted to also add to where you can actually place this part at the beginning of this, and that was I saw, while it was still available, the disturbing footage of the October, 6th or whatever it was called, into Israel from the across the border in GoPro footage that was being body worn by those invaders, and there were nobody at the border. There was no one. They drove up on motorcycles and jeeps, and there was absolutely no defense there at all from the most defended border almost on the planet.
Yeah.
Almost. So
yeah,
it to me
it makes no sense.
It didn't make a lick of sense. How could they do it? I washed it around my head. I could not sleep. I saw that footage and I realized that it had to have been left open. Word had to have gotten to those higher ups in the opposition for them to make their way to that part of the border to then breach it and come across and do those atrocious acts.
We also know for a fact that the Israelis had been planning this for a long time. How do we know this?
Pages.
We know this. Pages and mobile phones. Now, that's an activity that doesn't just happen overnight, even a couple of weeks. This would have taken months, if not potentially years of planning to get it all in place, right? Just to get it all done. But it was in place at the right time, if you think about it.
That's right.
So this wasn't just an action. This wasn't just an action that was dealing with Hamas. It was dealing with Lebanon and Hezbollah and the southern part of Lebanon, which, like, I think it's 30 kilometers, which have been completely bulldozed, right? Like a safety buffer between Lebanon and Israel, right? And now, and I said this from the start, Israel will want to take all of Gaza and the West Bank. I said this from the start, and guess what? That's exactly what they're doing. They're taking Gaza, they're taking the West Bank, and now, some, several months or some years, I guess, now into the conflict, Netanyahu has very clearly stated there will be no Palestinian state.
That's right.
Full stop. Full stop. And of course, a whole bunch of countries just recognized Palestine and were criticized severely. Sorry?
At the UN.
Yeah, so we did. At the UN. Australia did, the French did, the Canadians did, the British did. And they were severely criticized by both the Trump administration and the Netanyahu cabinet, right? And in fact, to the point where they're saying, oh, you're handing Hamas a massive victory. Well, the two-state solution has always been on the cards. Not just since the Oslo Accords, right? But even before then. But the Oslo Accords, that was I think in 92, right? They ratified that there would be a two-state solution. That was when Arafat was still around and the PLO. Right. Now, most of you might have forgotten what the PLO is. PLO is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, kind of sort of what was there before Hamas, right? And now I don't know what happened to that. That's completely gone now. But the point is this, and then they killed Arafat. He was poisoned. So it's a whole mess. The whole 90s and noughties is a mess. The entire region is a mess. But if you're denying Palestinian statehood and you're pushing, which is what amounts to 2-3 million people out of wherever they are, do we really think this is a recipe for peace, for lasting peace? I don't think so. But be that as it may, we will now see what happens. But Netanyahu has now got what he wants. He has it. Okay? And the Americans and Donald Trump is completely 100% behind him. If anybody else was in the White House, other than Donald Trump, I don't think Netanyahu would have gone as far as he did. And I also don't think that Putin would have gone as far as he did or as far as he's going. Because, again, Putin has turned up the heat, has now breached the airspace of, I think, 4 NATO states, not Ukraine, 4 NATO states, okay, getting everybody quite alert and getting ready on a war footing here. And oddly enough, and this is the craziest thing of all, and I know it's just words, but now Donald Trump says, oh, the Ukraine can probably win back all of its territories and more. Did you see that?
How?
Donald Trump. He just 180 flip-flopped and said, no, no, Russia's lost its way. They're crazy. They're paper tiger, and Ukraine clearly can fight, and they probably can now get back the territory that they lost, as well as maybe some Russian territory. And that's from the guy who only a few months ago said, no, Ukraine has to give up a whole bunch of territory.
That's right.
I'm not entirely sure what goes on in Donald Trump's head, to be honest. Now, having said that, this is just words.
Does he know what happens in his head? And I'd say no to that too.
Yeah, I agree, Fletty. Fletty says 90s were a mess for Russia as well. I agree. That's true.
Yeah, so, Meki, I remember Anwar Sadat. So, I remember before he was assassinated by his own people because he wanted peace in the Middle East. And he was the president, the third president of Egypt. And he said, let there be no more wars. He wanted peace with Israel. He won the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. And then he was assassinated in 1981.
Same as his counterpart, Menachem Begin, the Israeli prime minister, was also assassinated for the same reason by his own people. So both Anwar al-Sadat and Menachem Begin were assassinated by their own people for bringing peace to Egypt and Israel, because Egypt and Israel did sign a peace treaty, right? That actually, in fact, I think it was the first peace treaty that Israel signed with an Arab nation. Big hoo-ha. Big hoo-ha. And again, to your point, so much hoo-ha that both the Egyptians, or not all Egyptians, but someone in the Egyptian camp assassinated their president, and someone in the Israeli camp assassinated their head of state.
Yeah, so that was rid of both of them. That's right. So I've actually used a quote from Anwar Sadat in the lead in of one of the songs I have on Spotify.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So that leaves us here now in a somewhat strange situation. So I listened to Donald Trump's speech at the UN, which was interesting. There was a big hoo-ha made about his escalator. Now it turns out that the escalator malfunction was actually due to the, videographer who was videoing Donald Trump and Melania Trump. So he inadvertently must have pressed the button because he wanted to shoot them as they were going up. But he inadvertently pressed the button which made the escalator stop. Now, because it was really odd, because it only stopped when Donald Trump stepped on it. At that precise moment, the escalator stopped. And now it turns out it was his videographer who might have inadvertently pressed the button to stop it.
You know, you don't employ the work experience kid, Mackie. So the thing...
He was one of Musk's kids.
It's happening again. So the other thing was his auto cue. So they didn't want him to say anything that was planned. They just let him roll for his entire speech without an auto cue.
Yeah. But I want to say in defense of the UN, they had massive budget cuts. I think to the tune of $500 million, right?
Yeah, the budget cuts were because the US stopped giving them money.
Yeah, pretty much, right? So
you want to cut our budget? Let's see what happens when we turn off your auto cue. Good luck with that.
That's right. So what happens is he said that he loves the UN. They're doing a great job. There's great potential, etc., etc. The UN never had any power. The international court has no power. Okay, so but that's because there is no world police force, right?
That's right.
And that would have been the next step. But it was the only time a UN resolution carried any weight is when all of the members of the Security Council agreed, which is to say never. And usually what would happen is either the US or the USSR and then later Russia or China would do whatever they wanted to do. Like, remember the war with Iraq, right? The illegal war I'm talking about with George Bush Jr.
Yeah.
With the coalition of the willing. So the UN didn't ratify that, go ahead and invade. No, they didn't say that. So the coalition of the willing was assembled and Afghanistan was invaded. Even without a UN mandate, right? It turns out that was the right thing to do. Not giving a mandate, I mean. Because all of the things that were presented by Powell and Rumsfeld and Cheney, all those things, even Condoleezza Rice,
it all
were
fell
complete
apart.
lies and all made up.
That's right, all lies.
All fell apart.
Yep.
But you see, it never had any power. And the only way to give it power if you gave it an independent military force, which was completely under the control of the UN, not people that come in once in a while like peacekeepers, but you would need a police force and a military force for the UN. Now, that, of course, then smacks of world government, and that's a whole other can of worms that you don't want to open, right?
We have one of those.
Yeah, sure. And Donald Trump is going to be a world president.
One world currency. You know, stop all this problem.
Yeah, so again, I want to repeat what I said before, and I will say it again. Donald Trump will never, ever, ever do anything against Netanyahu, and he will never, ever, ever do anything against Putin. He will talk a lot. He will say many things, and he'll say, let's do this, let's do that. But he will never actually do anything directly that affects them in any way, right? And be clear here. He's not giving the Ukraine weapons. He's selling the weapons to the Europeans or NATO, if you will, and then they can do whatever they want with it.
Exactly.
And in Israel, he's not stopping anyone. You know,
that's right.
So stop this. No.
Well, think about the benefit of selling new old stock. It's just priceless, because the money you get, you just replace it with new stock.
Yeah. You have to get.
It's a way to move your old stock out of the way. That's right.
Hey, you're right. I mean, before they had to offload it to Africa mostly, or Asia, or South America. But most of the old stuff went to Africa because that's where the most wars were, right?
That's right.
But it's really interesting. There was a statue, near the White House. Did you see that? Of Donald Trump and Epstein?
No.
So there's a massive bronze statue, and it had a permission to be there. The park authority, allowed it. So it was Donald Trump and Epstein holding hands, and the bronze. I'm talking bronze here, right? And there was the letter, the text of his birthday message was on the statue as well. Now the park authority now removed it because apparently it violated the park, rules, which
all
it didn't.
The policies.
Yeah, because they had given permission for the statue to be erected. Of course, Donald Trump wasn't really. This is within eye shot of the White House.
Yeah, great.
By the way, find it online.
That's a very good protest. That's a great protest.
Yeah, it's like a 10. It's a 10-foot thing, I think. Right? Like it's massive. It's huge. It's and that was funny. No, but what we're seeing here now is it's really confusing what's happening right now. It's really very confusing. Mixed messages all over the place. The economy is not in great shape. It's not too bad, but it's not in great shape. No, look.
Sorry.
It could be worse, right?
I laughed out loud. I didn't mean to do that. Because the economy is so fantastic. Everyone is... We have money fights. Becky, that's what we do.
So, let's be clear. The people at the top, they're doing A-okay.
Sure.
To be clear. The people in the middle and the bottom, they're not doing so great. They're not doing so great. Okay? Because the people at the top, I'm talking about the states now, they got a massive tax cut. That's a permanent tax cut because it was actually signed into law.
That's right.
Right? So that's something that Congress, not an executive order that was signed into law. It's now ratified. There you have it. It's there forever. Until, I guess, Congress signs it out of law. I mean, it's all possible, I guess.
But that's really unlikely because they all have lots of money.
Well, if the Democrats, let's say, came in and they wanted to change, they would face massive opposition from all of their donors. I can guarantee.
If they won everything, right? Then Bernie Sanders, I actually feel sorry for Bernie Sanders. I don't like him, but I feel sorry for him because he keeps getting pushed aside, and someone else gets into power to run against Trump or whomever, and. Then we just 3D print little Bernie Sanders sitting on a chair. The whole planet was 3D printing these little Bernie Sanders dolls, right? It's weird. Mackie, I wanted to the typhoon that just went through Bangkok.
Oh, the super typhoon.
Yeah, it wasn't an ordinary one. I'll tell you that much. Did you see the sinkholes? I mean, these. Not a city block, but maybe half.
Are they sinkholes or are they like sink chasms?
Chasm. I'm going with chasm. I agree with you. So it's absolutely huge. Now, they did have a lot of rain. They're used to a lot of rain, but to survive your little truck there in this huge, it's like it's a very deep hole. Now, granted, there was leaking pipes and a lot of wastewater there, and it just found its way. It does that. Nothing to see here. Don't really worry about it. However, Mackie, there was a landslide there, and it formed a natural dam across the river. And it was 4 kilometers high, the hill or something, and it washed down and filled the basin and cut off a river. And that also broke because the amount of rainfall they had exceeded the natural dam's capacity. And that went flooding down. I just saw that. This only happened in the last 10 hours. So they're struggling, and there's another typhoon building behind it. But it should not be as bad as that one. It got down to, what was it, 860 something in isobars. It's that pressure is very low. It wasn't the most ever, which I think was 852, I think. But they had destructive winds more than 2,000, maybe 1,600 miles out from the center. Destructive winds. I don't mean like a little breeze. I mean things over 100 kilometers an hour, out thousands of kilometers away from the center. That's something else. That's really big.
I've got people. Absolutely. I've got people in the Philippines, in Malaysia, in China as well, in Hong Kong specifically, which are affected by this. So you're absolutely correct. And the thing is, it's a super typhoon. It's not a typhoon. It's a super typhoon. It's like we are dealing with storms that there was a comparison done. I'm getting the numbers wrong, but this is about the ratio. From 1970 to 1995 or whatever, there were like maybe 4 or 5 typhoons like that, right? Mm-hmm. But then from 95 to 2010, there were 3. But from 2010 to now, there were like 12 or 15 or whatever. My point is, and I'm getting the numbers wrong, I know I am, but the ratios are about right. It's just more and more storms that are more powerful, right? Not more storms, but more storms that are more powerful. So
that's
where
right.
Before it might have been a typhoon, it is now a super typhoon, right? Mm-hmm. And similar with hurricane season in the States, right? It's not like there are more hurricanes necessarily, but they're stronger hurricanes, right? And that's got to do with moisture in the air and the relative temperature.
And sea surface temperature is the most important
Correct.
To give it power.
Oh, 100%. Now, Donald Trump says it's all a hoax.
That's right.
Greenhouse, it's hoax. Now, he can say whatever he likes. It's fine. And again, I'm not saying it's a man-made catastrophe, right? Because to be honest with you, climate change has been a constant on this planet. Climate change happens all the time. In geological time, I'm talking about, right? Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but over time, it happens a lot. They found snap-frozen mammoths with daisies in their mouth, buttercups, chewing, right? Buttercups. Now you don't find buttercups in the tundra, in the frozen tundra, right? Which means, of course, that there was a massive sudden climate change that overtook the tundra in ancient times. And we know from ice core probes and all kinds of things that climate change is a thing. It happens for various reasons. Maybe there are mechanisms involved that have nothing to do with us. Maybe we're accelerating it. Maybe we're not, right?
Bear in mind that we're still thawing from the last ice age.
Yeah, but bear in mind that the largest greenhouse gas contributors, carbon I'm talking about now, right? And such carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, comes from forest fires. And the second largest source is now methane coming out of the tundra. Okay? Mm-hmm. Then it's humans. Okay? For all the pollution, right, that we put out, and we do put a lot out there, make no mistake, right? Does it have an impact? Sure, I'm sure there's an effect. But there are many other sources, right, that influence the climate before we do, just to be clear. And stopping it is a complete nonsense. We need to talk about what to do. What can we do to live with it? What can we do to live with it, to mitigate the worst things that will happen? It's not like, are they going to happen? Can we stop it? We can't stop it. That ship has sailed.
Roll up our pant legs, Mickey.
and wear gumboots. And that's the music. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back on Sunday with the shiny side out and our hypothesis. Today really flew by. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. Donate if you can. Like, subscribe, share if you can, comment also. Don't go anywhere. Something is going to come up. But most of all, Dave,
be safe, everyone.